Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Josh Ainsworth, the owner of Green Mountain Aerial Solutions. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
So, I've been following you a bit on social media in the last maybe year. You've become kind of a bit of a rock star for saving animals, particularly dogs that go wayward by using drones. So let's start off by, how did this come about?
So I'm getting ready to retire from the military in about a year, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do when I retire, and I'm very interested in aviation and drone technology. So I bought one a few years ago and started doing construction monitoring, photography, and my wife and I just moved to Newport in January, and I'm seeing almost on a daily basis posts about missing animals. So I got my name out there, started doing a couple of them, had some success stories where we actually found the pet. I video all of my searches, and they just kind of blew up from there.
Right. Now, is this something you learned in the military, the use of drones, or is this something totally out of your realm?
Definitely no drone experience in the military for me. I do have some experience using thermal imaging on some like weapon systems.
Right.
I've taken a level 1 thermography course through a college, but it's all just been self-taught flying and really using the technology.
Right. So let's go back now. Who is Josh Ainsworth, and where did you come from, and what makes you tick?
So I grew up in Hardwick, Vermont.
Right.
Graduated in 2003 from Hazen Union. Joined the National Guard at 17. Did a few jobs right out of high school: Cabot Creamery, a machine shop, and then I started active duty National Guard in 2008.
Right.
And I've been active duty guard for the last 19 years. My wife and I, Caitlin, and our 4 kids live in Newport, Vermont, and that's about my story.
Right. So, and we were talking beforehand, you've also been deployed, what was it, 3 times?
Twice. Yeah, I went to Iraq in 2005 and 6, and Afghanistan in 09 and 10.
Right. Okay. So tell me, what was how did the first one of your cases as trying to find a pet, how did it come about? Did you just see a dog missing and you say, hey, I will try this?
Actually, no. I started a small LLC, small business 2 years ago. Made a website, Facebook page, and was really kind of focusing on construction monitoring for these general contractors, specifically down in Burlington. I was going once a month, doing aerial photography from certain waypoints so they could see the timeline of their builds.
Right.
Someone came across my social media or my Facebook page and asked if I did missing pets. I had a thermal capable drone, but really no experience. So I said, yeah, I'll definitely give it a try and it won't hurt. That was not a successful recovery. But every time one of us pilots go out, we learn a little more each time to hone in our standard or our practice, what you're looking for, how to determine what's a rock, what's a pet, stuff like that.
My question has always been, how do you determine, and this is probably a dumb question, but how do you determine if you're using thermal, whether you're in probably visual, but how do you determine when it's a small dog or a fox if you can't see it totally, if you're just going by heat?
That's a good question. So, um, just to give a quick overview of like the laws, the FAA regulation is 400 feet elevation is considered Class G airspace. So I need to maintain an altitude of 400 feet or less. I typically fly like 300 to 350 feet, so I can cover a lot of ground. When I pick up a heat or a hot spot, I will lower the drone so the spot gets larger. And then I have the ability, I have a spotlight on my drone. The thermal camera gets kind of pixelated once you zoom out a ways. So if I pick up a heat signature that appears to be a dog size, I will lower down to, let's say, 200 feet. And then I'll actually turn my spotlight on, which will illuminate like a 20-foot circle, like a flashlight. And then I can get positive identification.
Right. How does it feel when you actually spot an animal that is being searched for?
It feels incredible. And the vast majority of the time, I have the pet owner standing next to me. I run like a 32-inch screen that I put on the back of my truck, run an HDMI cord to my controller. So they're essentially watching exactly what my controller shows. And it's phenomenal. And the pet owners really get lively when they see, because they're at that point just out there with hopes at that point.
Well, Sherry Gerard, who you've probably met, she belongs to one of these pet rescue groups. She's been on the show. She says sometimes knowing where the pet is and capturing the pet are two different things, because she said that a lost pet, if it's out there too long, it will revert, kind of like revert back to its wild instincts, and sometimes it won't even respond to its owner. So have your have your finds been have they been able to be rounded up really quick, or have some of them proved problematic even after you actually located them?
Um, Another great question, because Sherry's correct. The longer the time goes by since that animal's been missing, they can turn into a fight or flight mode. So if the owner is used to, kind of yelling or calling their name loud and having a responsive pet, 4 or 5 days go by, that dog might not even listen to that.
Right.
I've had some where I've spotted a dog half a mile away and it was just bedded down on the edge of a field. We drove side by side right up to it, got right in the car. I've had others, a recent one in Lowell, where I spotted the dog. The owners, I got them a grid coordinate. They started making their way towards the dog, and I had to come back to do a battery change. By the time I got back out there, the dog wasn't nowhere in the vicinity of where I last saw it, because it was a 9-month-old puppy and was just on the move.
Right. Now, didn't you just barely capture a dog without even putting your drone up? Didn't I read that on social media?
You did. Probably will never happen again. Right time, right place. But I was on my way to a call, and I was about half a mile from the turn onto the road, and I saw an animal run across the road in front of me, which I thought was a large fox. I got close, noticed it was the dog I was on my way to search for. I pulled over and got out, called his name. He walked right over to me and jumped right in my truck.
So did the owners already know you had it when you drove up to them?
I called her and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe this. I'm about a minute from your location, and your dog's riding shotgun next to me."
What are the reactions you get from the people you have successful searches for?
They're just through the moon. You know, they want to give me a hug. They're tears. A lot of them are crying because this is an extension of their family. You know,
Right.
they would go to all ends of the earth to get their pet home.
Right. Oh, I could have needed you back in my rabbit hunting days. I could have used you because hounds
Yeah.
get something in their head. If something hits their nose that they like, there's no turning them back. So
Right.
there were more than one night I went without them, but we always managed to track them down. But it would.
Yeah.
So how do you? I know there's time and expense, so there must be a fee for your service.
There is a fee. So the it ranges kind of greatly. Distance, how long you want me to search for. Um, that can go from $300 or $400 to 1,000 plus.
Right.
Me personally, I only do this um, in the evenings after my full-time job,
Right.
in weekends. There's some other pilots in New Hampshire and New York that are full-time missing pets. That's it.
Right.
So a lot of those guys will actually travel well into Vermont or Maine, and you know their rate may be higher, but they're traveling 5 hours one way.
Right.
Um, so I don't really charge mileage anywhere outside of like 25, 30 miles of Newport. But a good baseline is about $400 for 2 to 3 hours of searching.
Right.
Yeah.
I okay. Go on. Yeah. Because I know I've often wondered at what point does a pet owner need to actually have outside help? Because I've had, as I was saying, I had beagles. More often than not, they came home on their own, and then my
Yeah.
last three dogs were Goldens, and they were a little more sissies about things, and they would actually they always made their way home. Of course they never really ventured. But occasionally when somebody was letting off firecrackers, which I have to believe the 4th of July might be a busy time for you because dogs don't like that. But I've often wondered at what point is a person supposed to really worry about their dog. So, how long do most
Right.
people, you know, how long do most people last? Because I know for a fact you get some. Well, I think you get some almost. They walk out the door and you're already on your way. But
Yes, I mean, some people call pretty quick, but in my experience, most people don't think about drones or the drone technology and thermals until they see a Facebook post or a friend recommends, and then they're like, "Oh, my dog's been gone 2 or 3 days." That's typically like the call that I get. Um, and I'm usually very, very transparent with a pet owner. I just got a call about an hour before this interview for a missing cat that's been gone 2 days in Newport Center. And I said, cats are very tricky compared to dogs. They're more apt to climb trees or hide under sheds. And this is the worst time of year with all the thick tree canopy.
right,
Um, I will not turn you down, but your expectations need to be low of finding this cat. It's not impossible, but I'm not doing this to get rich and make $1 million. Sure, I could go out to every phone call I get, but I let them know, hey,
Have you
it's
ever
been
found a
2 days.
cat? Have you ever
I,
successfully found a cat?
I have not. I've only looked for one. 99% have been dogs.
Right. Yeah, and I hate to say this about cats. There's a lot of young that need to be fed out there, a lot of young wildlife. And whenever I
Yeah.
see a cat missing, particularly in the countryside, I'm not sure what the odds are that you're going to be seeing it again. But cats are a little trickier, I can imagine. So,
A lot of it, I feel, is a peace of mind to the owners. The one that I did in Lowell that I talked about, where I had to change my battery and um, I flew back and the dog wasn't in the vicinity. That was about 3.5 hours one evening. I went back the next day for another almost 4. Pretty much ruled out this entire area. I had the owners watching the screen with me. They were extremely confident that their dog was not where I searched. Very thorough search. So I recommended, unless you get a positive sighting from a neighbor or yourself, then there's not a lot of sense in me coming back a third time. I would recommend a humane kennel from animal control
right.
with a trail cam. That's kind of like the next level of
Right.
search you want to do.
Right. Have you ever, like, I imagine the state police have experts who are used to drones, but have you ever helped law enforcement yet track down people, missing people? As in, like, let's say the one on the one that ended in tragedy she wasn't found until this spring out on Mount Pitt.
Willoughby,
Yeah, have you ever helped out any of those?
I have not. I work with a couple state troopers that are also in the guard, and they do have a VSP drone team. They have my name and information, but oftentimes they don't want outside entities coming in. We also have within the National Guard, our aviation assets have thermal capabilities on their helicopters. So I have not directly assisted law enforcement yet.
Right. So what else have you been searching for in addition to pets?
That's it. I petitioned Fish and Wildlife last February of 2024 in hopes of getting them to pass deer and wildlife recovery. And it was pretty heavily shot down. Um, other states are implementing it,
Right.
and I think it will happen some year down the road. But it's so new. They're really concerned with how do you regulate it, and they want to know you're not scouting or seeing where deer are
Right.
instead of actually helping locate them.
Well, it would seem to me if somebody were going to use a drone for that purpose, they would still use it law or no law now because, like just an average person, I would think it would be pretty easy to skirt the rule just go scouting with them. So,
You
that's
nailed
like
it, Scott. That is almost word for word what I told the board. I said, if somebody wants to do it, they're going to anyway. I wouldn't be here trying to provide a service, if I was just going to go do it. And I'm an ethical hunter of this state myself, and I think there's benefits to it in conjunction with leash tracking dogs.
so. Tell me so do you are your cameras good enough to when you're out during the day where you could say, hey, that's a great 10-point buck? do you actually see that on your screen where you can actually like see these animals just going about life?
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Um, when I'm searching, typically, I didn't really mention, my typical search time is after sunset. I prefer to search 8:30, 9 o'clock at night because you have thermal loading. Like a day like today where it's 100% sun, rocks, trees, stream, everything is hot. So I like for the environment to cool down, which is when deer, raccoons, everything starts moving around at night. So yes, I pick up every sort of animal you can think of, clear as day. I see porcupines in trees to rabbits on the ground, deer eating out in fields.
No Bigfoot sightings yet?
Not yet, not yet.
If you get a picture of that, you might be able to make yourself some real money.
Yeah,
Um, so you're in this for the long haul. It looks like you're going to retire from the military, and you're going to be doing this for the future.
that is my hopes. Um, I'm smart enough to set myself up for success. So if my business doesn't carry me through, I have some backup plans.
Well,
You know,
what
I
about what about spousal recons? As in, all right, what is he really doing, or what is
yeah,
she really doing? But
uh, it. That's the one thing about drones is it's literally just a flying camera. So whatever your imagination can come up with, right?
I have people who provide me work drone photos for the journal because I like to take an old photo, and if it's a landscape photo like of Newport. Newport's a great city to get because I there's so many old photos, but then I like to show what that
Sure.
same landscape photo is today. So one of the guys I call in is Rick DeRushy, and he has mastered the drone for his purpose, as in he's a photographer from the ground, and he evolved into drone photography, and so that's my full extent of using drones.
Yeah.
Uh, just having people submit them to me, and I just show the change in landscape. So if you ever have any great photos that you just want in, just let me know.
I sure will. And that kind of, when I got into drones and bought my first cheap one, it was just, my wife and I camp seasonally up in Newport.
Right.
And it's, as you said, just a beautiful city. Magog and
Yeah.
the overlook, and especially in the fall. So I bought it to do photography. And I
Right.
love editing and Lightroom and everything. And then I realized that there's a need and a positive impact with missing pets, but I still go back to my roots of absolutely love photographing, especially Newport.
Well, I don't know if you've probably seen my posts, but I've written quite extensively about where the campground is. It was during the 1930s, maybe 20s and 30s, like the Norwich cadets used to have they would take off from Norwich and do a on their horses, and then later some vehicles, and they just take a tour throughout what is now the kingdom. And one of their
Mhm.
stopovers was there, and then the army from down in the Burlington area, maybe it's your group, they used to camp there, the cavalry, and then following World War II, that place where you camp are they used to have temporary housing there for World War II troops returning home. So you're right in your element at the campground. There's goes back about 100 years of military camping there.
Mhm.
how does one contact you if they're missing a pet, or maybe I don't know if they need your
Yep.
aerial expertise?
So if you go to my website, greenmountainaerialsolutions.com, I
Right.
have a request form on there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Drop down what services you like. You hit submit, I get an email. Um, the fastest, easiest way is to either just call or text me at 802-793-7164.
Right. Yeah. So has your website helped you quite a bit?
A little bit. I would say 95% is either word of mouth, my Facebook page, or good old fashioned business cards. I have my logo on my truck and I'll get gas in the morning and people just ask me about it and ask if I have a card. And
Social media, I think most people have a love-hate relationship with it. But when you're in business, like myself, quite honestly, without social media today, I don't know if I don't know if I could have weathered some of the hard times, like the COVID crisis and
right.
all the downturn in business that occurred because of them. And so social media is as much as most of us have, conflicting thoughts about it. It's really a great tool for getting the word out about the business. Like I've learned about
Right.
your business on there, and uh, usually involves one of the rescue groups
Yep.
mentioning you, and because we do have, there are a lot of people working to find lost pets, and so
Oh,
your name became, just I think I started noticing it mostly in the last few months. All of a sudden, oh, you got to call Josh at, um,
yeah.
and so yeah, so you've really suddenly got out there on social media.
The biggest, I think, where the whole thing started was myself, a guy named Rob Russell, and Janice Keller. We were working with Renee Falconer
Right.
last fall for the dog that became known as Buckethead
Buckethead,
up
yeah.
in Derby. You probably saw the
Oh yeah,
story, and we're following the week-long attempt to capture him. We had 3 drones up there and 20 people on the ground, and it was nuts.
yeah, and that was kind of strange how it all ended. You ended up rescuing them, and then, well, things all got,
Yeah,
yeah, get a little strange. But you rescued him. You got the bucket off his head, and he got
yeah.
the eat it. Hopefully, he's still okay today.
That dog got eventually humanely trapped with McDonald's chicken nuggets, and a week of efforts by a lot of the community.
Right. If somebody's gonna humanely trap me, just put a couple craft beers and a bottle opener, and I'll probably be all set. So
Couple switchbacks.
yeah. So okay. Again, how do people contact you? Once again, you got to get the word out.
All right. The easiest way is to call or text me 802-793-7164 or an email greenmountainaerialsolutions@gmail.com.
Okay. Well, I think we can wrap it up. And well, thank you for your work, and thank you for your service to your country. And hopefully, you will enjoy your retirement. My father retired from the Vermont National Guard, but he was full-time Air Force. Then he went on to retire from the National Guard, but on a part-time basis. Every year was going to be his last year. Wasn't staying any
Yeah.
longer. But he stayed
Right.
in, and he would tell you to stay in because the benefits of retirement. There's a lot of benefits
Yeah.
that you get after for staying in for 20 years. And
Yeah.
he in old age, he just couldn't say enough about it. So yeah.
I agree.
So okay. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Scott.
And thank
Appreciate it.
you. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.